How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go and attempt this mission, the Factory's Bridge mission, because if I build that, what I wanted to do was get that power plant up and running, which you got to go and deliver like fuel. The main one was fuel, because that's kind of on the right hand side of the map, and the power plant's kind of in the left top corner. Yeah, instead of me having to cut through the farm section, which is a little bit slow on this game, I'm going to have to cut through there to do this, but eventually when I've built that factory bridge, yeah, it'll just help connect the whole map up. There's more options to cut across, faster routes and all the rest of it. Yeah, so this is the route I'm going to take. I've got the BOAR, the P16 and the Twinsteer, and then I've got a Navistar that I was considering like as a backup truck. If one of these got properly stuck, I would have sent in the Navistar. I was driving around in the Navistar the other day, and yeah, it is a pretty solid truck to be honest. I really do like that. It's a shame they've kind of limited it to by now. I'd rather they just add it to the game. I don't really care that it was a pre-order bonus. Like, it'd just be cool if they added it, even if obviously people who didn't get the pre-order bonus just have to buy it from the game menu. But yeah, it's a pretty good truck. It's just pretty well balanced, the way it's all weighted and everything. But yeah, like I say, I mean, this mission was a little bit of a go at kind of comparing the BOAR to the P16 mainly. I also just wanted to have a go. I've got to take 6 lots of metal beams to the factory bridge, and yeah, the only way I could have carried 3 metal beams on each one with the P16 and this is having that 8-slot trailer, and I'm not too keen on that trailer, so I wanted to bring this one instead. I could only fit 2 metal beams on, so that's why I'm going to take the Twinsteer. Yeah, that can take the last 2 metal beams, and we'll get that done. I'll probably end up, well, I do, going the other way with the Twinsteer, so I'm not going to cut through this farm every time. And yeah, like I say, first up is the BOAR, and well, you can see already, at the minute, I'm kind of going to put 50% of the blame on this BOAR and 50% on this river crossing, because this river crossing is definitely a bit over the top. Again, it's not the end of the world, it's not something that doesn't bother me or anything, it just, this section isn't enjoyable anymore. Every time I have to cut across here, I just think, oh god, I've got to drive through that river again, and all it's going to be is 1 mile an hour, or sticking winches on everything, which, again, the winches are just, they're nice as a backup, but I don't want to just have it as like the go-to thing for crossing everything, so it'd be nice if they just calmed things down a little bit there. And again, I don't know if that's something to do with the physics tweak they've done, but I just feel like I don't quite have as much grip as I used to. And yeah, I'm going to drive into sort of the top corner. There's various buildings around this game that are like the metal frame buildings, so I kind of had a choice. I could either go and poach a load of them, or that cargo creation zone, which I pretty much just drove past that was on my left. I can build a load of metal beams there using the generator in exchange for fuel, which I do like that as well. I've also been exploring the map earlier, just trying to get... One thing I do like about this new phase is I like it enough to where I'm willing to be invested enough in learning, like, where's got logs, where's got limited logs, where's got various cargo, how I can build cargo, whatever. Like, when they did the Phase 2 one, particularly with the cargo crafting, the Phase 2 was just a little bit of a mess for a couple of reasons. Like, obviously, they brought Phase 2 out, and the maps themselves were very slow and trollish. They also had the crafting situation, which seemed a bit odd and complicated, and kind of... The maps weren't fun enough to where I was enjoying myself enough to think, right, I'm willing to learn all the different cargo crafting things. Then they also had, like, they basically bugged a good chunk of the contracts to where you had to go and deliver, like, 15 cabins instead of 3. So that also kind of put me off while I waited for them to patch that. And by the time they did, again, yeah, I was just a little bit bored of the map. So I didn't really bother. Whereas, yeah, on this one, I've sort of took the time. The last couple of nights, I've been driving around, yeah, looking at, like, I've collected all the missions, so I can kind of see what I've got to do. There's some of the missions that give you access to locations. So the main one on this one, Black Badger Lake, is the power station. I don't really know what happens, to be honest, once I unlock the power station, but I'll be doing that one soon. And then on the other map as well, there's like a fuel station that you'll get access to if you take a crane truck there. There's a mini warehouse that you have to rescue some other truck and get that there, and then that'll open that warehouse for more, yeah, just things, cargo, I'm hoping. I also quite like, I drove to the sawmill on this one, Black Badger Lake. I keep wanting to call it like Black Badger River because of Black River. yeah, and on the way, I didn't know it at the time, but I was thinking on the way it'd be pretty cool if you had to take logs and deliver them to the sawmill. And basically you do, and then you can turn them into wooden planks. I don't know how many wooden planks you get for each one yet. I'll be testing that pretty soon. There is a wooden bridge on this map to build as well, which needs 8 wooden planks. Yeah, so again, tonight as well, I went round all the maps, went and checked every login station to see if or how many are limited, like they've got a certain amount of cargo. And basically every login station on this map was limited cargo, 6 to 9 pieces of cargo in each, which, as I said, it works out as like 2 to 3, because you need 3 logs per load of cargo, basically. So, and then there was only one log station, which is good though, at least there is. There's one log station that's got unlimited cargo, which is the one I went to the other day with the Paystar and the Dolphin. It was like the first login station. It's kind of in the middle of the map, towards the top. It's just sort of to the left of the garage, really. Yeah, so for the most part, I might try and empty some of the kind of limited cargo login stations, and then eventually I'll just have that one login station left. And yeah, as I said, it was the same kind of option doing this, really. I could have either go round poaching all the metal beams off the different metal buildings that are scattered around, or just create more metal beams using the generator and the fuel. And I wasn't too sure at first, but in the end I decided to poach a few of them. I might leave 1 or 2 of those metal frame buildings just as they are for the, I don't know, a bit more scenery and stuff around the map. As I said, once you take them down, I've just got to that first place, which, as you could see, was ridiculously slow. I'm going to cut ahead in a sec, just to about where that next blue dot is, because it honestly took me 3 or 4 minutes going through that, and I was just winching to everything painfully slow. And I mean, yeah, this is where the BOAR is not that great. Like, I don't think it's a terrible truck, but it just sort of isn't that great. The P512 is limited because it's not all-wheel drive, but it feels pretty decent for what it is. Still not amazing. This just kind of, yeah, it's got such a lot of weight to it and everything, and like I said, there's a hell of a lot of weight just being supported by those front axles, which have only got 2 single width wheels. It does sink quite a bit, but I also will say this area I'm in now, I did cut through here the other day when I was just collecting missions, and I came through there, was it the Tiger or the Dolphin? It might have even been both I went through there with. And yeah, they were feeling very slow through there, so like I said, I'm kind of putting it 50% onto the map. I kind of feel a little bit like it's not quite the same situation with the super mud as we've got in flooded foothills, but it seemed like in flooded foothills, as you was cutting through mud, it felt like there was, say, a speed cap as you go through that terrain, where it's like it doesn't matter how powerful your truck is, if you've got no cargo and you quite, you know, you can move and get your foot down, it just limit you to like a couple of miles an hour. And it wasn't grip that was the issue, it wasn't engine power, it was just that was it. You'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 mile an hour, and then that's it. That's about your lot. With this one, it feels more like I'm still got a feeling that they've messed around with the gears and the rev caps and how it applies the power. That feels a little bit off. But it's also as if like the mud just doesn't have any grip. So instead of being like, say, speed capped, it's almost like grip capped, where it's yeah, you might have the power, but you just sit there wheel spinning. This one is a pretty bad one for it, because it's got so much weight to it. It just kind of sinks into the floor, and then that's it, wheel spins. That's what it did cutting across that river. You see there as well, it just completely died on the power. I believe I've got the fine-tuned gearbox as well, and I was in the high-low. And yeah, it wouldn't even apply any power to the wheels. They were just sat there locked up. In the end, I winched to like a little shrub that was nearby that just, yeah, from the force of the winch pulling me forward a little bit was enough to finally get the tyres firing up. But that's been happening to me a couple of times in the last few days, and I don't really remember that being much of an issue before now. And again, I mean, in that sense, that wasn't even say a limited grip situation. That's now like it's, yeah, I don't know, it's just not dumping the power in. Again, like I've said before, imagine if you had like a clutch that was slipping. That was kind of like the engine's revving, but nothing's happening, so I assume that would be where you're like burning the clutch instead of spinning the wheels. And yeah, my gut feeling is they've broke something or purposely tweaked something. when they've added this high range, oh sorry, the fine-tuned gearbox. And you can see crawling through here, I mean again, this farm section is a little bit slow. I wish they'd tone it down a little bit, only because I've cut through here now. Trucks can get through here, they just go very slow. And it's kind of like, once you've done it once or twice, yeah, it's slow enough to it's like, okay, I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of just driving 2 miles an hour, so it'd be nice if the trucks were a little bit more capable through there. But yeah, even now, oh no, I'm running out of fuel. I'll give it a pass on that one. Again, I mean, that's why I brought a goddamn horse of a vehicle, because you never know, just, yeah, spare repairs, all that sort of stuff. In a way, I kind of like with some of the trailers, the step deck and this one, and even that 8 slot, has kind of got the little step up at the end, which always seems to be enough room to pop yourself a horse. And yeah, you never know. Well, again, I've already used the fuel from it, so I would have been pretty stuffed on, and the fuel station's only up here. I wasn't sure if this would be able to make it or not. But basically, it drank so much fuel cutting through that swampy bit that, yeah, it managed to nail, what is it, 300 litres. So this one's got like a extra 50% on top of the P512. But I'd say this one is a bit of a heavy drinker in its own right as well. When you consider later on I drive the P16, that fuel usage is obviously in the teens, kind of like 15-20 litres. This one I believe was more into the 20s. Again there, it wouldn't let me fill the loaf up because it's packed, so I just filled the BOAR up, filled the loaf up with the BOAR, and then refilled the BOAR. And again, we've got a river crossing here, which, as you can see, I mean, it's not that insanely deep. It's not quite to where the tyres have disappeared, but it's just stuck again. As somebody said it in the comments on yesterday's video, and I do agree with them, this BOAR is a little bit like the Derry 4520, that it's a bit too heavy for its own good. So it spends so much effort fighting its own weight that it hasn't got a lot left to give for the actual terrain conquering that. And again, like even now I've had to resort to winches, and I do believe, yeah, they've probably gone a little bit over the top with like the mud that's probably under the water now. There could well be rocks under there as well that are kind of locking my tyres up a little bit, but yeah, when you read the description of this BOAR, it says it's got a big meaty engine and all the rest of it. Even in high, well, yeah, high-low now, I'm not so sure if, again, they could be fiddling with things behind the scenes since the big major update, but it does feel like they're not giving you all the torque in the engine. And again, that's why I always like just high range so much, because it's always felt like the freest gear that just gives you the power, like it gives you everything the truck's got, which is I like that. Then I can feather the throttle and I can limit the power, like when I want. I can limit the power by feathering the throttle rather than the game just saying, well, you're only allowed this much power in this gear or whatever. You can see here I'm cutting across like on this middle island, but I've kind of come in the back way. That's definitely what she said. And yeah, there was like a rock slide thing that was over the road. It cut through there pretty well, I'll give it credit with that. It didn't struggle too much on the rocks. I think this has got 58-inch tyres, so they're not bad, they're pretty tall. Yeah, there was kind of another rock slide there around the corner, and considering this thing's not small and the trailer's a bit of a beast, it got round there pretty well and climbed over the rocks. So I have to say, that sort of credit it. Yeah, it did alright there. You can see there that it hit the mud and sort of splashed it all up. And yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying though, is it is a bit like the Derry 4520, where it probably is a bit too heavy for its own good. I think this would benefit from, say like those quasi big monster mud tyres or whatever that a lot of the mods have got, or even if, to use an example of wheels in the game, like the custom muds that the Tager's got, the ANK's now got, the Taz, the Warthog, I think all them get it. Yeah, because again, that front wheel, there's a lot of ground pressure that's just making it squidge straight through the mud. At least if you had wheels that were twice as wide, it'd kind of half the ground pressure at the front, and yeah, maybe make things a little bit better, kind of make it sit on the terrain rather than just completely slicing through it. But anyway, the last little section, it did pretty well. Like I said, it cut round those rocks pretty decently. Horns a little bit there on it for the size of the truck. So that's the BOAR. Now, it's a similar route, but certainly a bit quicker, because I'm not going to have to cut up to the the first metal framing thing's a little glitch there. But yeah, now we'll take the P16. See if it's still the daddy of the big trucks. When I actually seen the P16 and the BOAR together, I didn't quite realise how big the BOAR was until you park it next to the P16. There's not many trucks in this game that kind of, yeah, put the P16 back into scale. Normally it's just a monster compared to the other stuff. But yeah, they're about the same size. Might even say the BOAR's a tiny bit taller maybe. And again though, this is not all-wheel drive, so this is kind of a little bit like the P512. I'd say already, I think this is better than the P512. And yet, I think I prefer the P512 to the BOAR. It's just the P512 is it's quite nice to drive and everything, but it's a little bit... It's a bit of a hard mode truck because it hasn't got all-wheel drive. The BOAR just, yeah, it doesn't... There's not many places it really fits in, because to be honest, as a massive chunky all-wheel drive vehicle, I'd probably end up taking the Club. It's got 2 more axles, it's spreading its weight out more over those 8 wheels. It's got this advanced special gearbox, which actually works pretty nicely with the big hefty trucks. Although I definitely do like the fact that this could have the high range. You can see again, I've even put the fine-tuned gearbox in this just to try and make things a little bit even between this and the BOAR. And we got most of the way over the river. Sadly, in the end, I had to just do a little bit of winching. But with the BOAR, I needed to winch that telegraph pole in the middle and then kind of winch from the back of the trailer to the telegraph pole just to push me forward to where I could get near enough to the edge of the river. This thing probably did a little bit better already, and again, it's not even all-wheel drive, so... I think the way this is probably weighted better, not only is it heavier than the P512, but I think it puts, say, more of its weight in the back end of the P16, which always keeps a nice amount of weight on the rear axles, which, if you're classing each kind of axle as 4 wheels on it, this is a 10-wheeled truck, 8 of them are driving wheels, and yeah, there's plenty of weight over the rear to where it needs that weight for the grip. The BOAR kind of feels like it's more weighted at the front. The P512 as well, it doesn't feel bad with the weight, it's probably pretty spread out, but it's just not as heavy as this. And again, it's like, in this kind of situation, yeah, I think weight is the way you got to go if you're going to get away with no all-wheel drive. And overall, it's a little bit slow. After driving this, to be honest, and doing this, I will be putting the advanced special gearbox back in this, and probably just sticking with that, because, yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, again, there's a lot of different versions of the fine-tuning they've added in now, so it may not always be the case that, I mean, for example, with the trucks that can take, like, the high range and the off-road, that version of the fine-tune, it feels like you get more power in high-low with the fine-tune than you do with the off-road. But then, judging from what I've felt so far with the P16, and I definitely think I'll still be sticking to the advanced special. But I suppose the difference is, like, the high range and the off-road gearboxes are kind of different styles of gearboxes, and there's kind of 2 camps of people. Some like the off-road, some like the high range. The special and advanced special, I don't necessarily think it's 2 versions of that kind of gearbox. It just seems to be the advanced special is better than the special anyway, but it's just like an improved version of the special. So yeah, in that sense, I don't think I'll be putting the fine-tune in a lot of stuff where I can use the special advanced special. And I've not tried the fine-tune in scout vehicles yet, and I don't really know with that, so I will try it out pretty soon, because yeah, like with the Loaf, one of the main scouts I drive quite a lot, and that's obviously got like the SnowRunner or the freeway options, and I have the freeway in it just because it has better top speed overall. The scouts really are a little bit slow. If you consider in real life, like, cars or 4x4s, you know, the Hummer for example, you'd expect it to go a lot faster than something like the P16 or the Twinsteer, certainly acceleration wise. Yeah, I've never been a massive fan of the Scout gearboxes anyway. Certainly my favourite gearbox in the game is the high range gearbox. I'd quite like to see what the high range is like in stuff like the Loaf and the Hummer and all the Scouts really. So yeah, I'll give the fine tune a go, but I don't know, I may end up just sticking to the freeway. It all depends really how much, like, what they've done, where they've set those rev caps. And it probably depends from vehicle to vehicle, because, yeah, some engines, I think they need to rev fairly high before it actually gives you everything you're asking for. Some other trucks, though, I mean, those engines, like, in the Dolphin, that's the A's of, like, 18.6 or whatever, that feels like it needs to rev fairly high to get all the power out of it, whereas the KZ engine that's in Bruce, Dan, I think it's in, and the Collobs, that feels like, and that usually has the special advanced special gearbox, like, yeah, it doesn't feel like that needs to rev as high, so it probably doesn't get quite as punished from sort of severe rev caps. And again, it's a little bit slow plodding through here. I mean, this is part of the reason why I wanted to open up this this factory bridge, because like I said, for the next one, the power plant, a lot of the stuff I'll be able to get from the railway station where I've created cargo there, like Cargo Creation Zone 3. But what I do need is 8 lots of fuel, and that's kind of, if you carry on up here but kind of swerve off to the left a bit, the fuel station's kind of over that way, in sort of in front of where the camera's looking now. Yeah, and I'll either have to go grab the fuel from there, cut back through this farm, but now I've built this factory bridge, I can just cut straight across the map. That near enough takes me back to the railway station, and then, yeah, up to the power plant. Well, yeah, straight over the crossroads where that fuel station is, and it'll just be a lot easier and smoother. As well, I'll be doing the live stream again tomorrow. Like, it's about 2:30 in the morning for me if you're on, like, British time. I believe on the east coast of America, I believe you're like 5 hours behind, so what's that going to be, like 9:30 at night? And then I think all the way on the other side, on the west coast of America, it was probably about 5:30 or something. I think you're about 8 hours behind. So this was the metal frame in place that's, like, right opposite this fuel station. But again, once you've poached them, that's it, they're just gone. See, it's been a bit weird there. See the rear tyres of the P16 just jiggling around? I'm in high-low, which is where you'd expect the most torque, and yet, yeah, the wheels were just jiggling, and I certainly don't think I've ever had that happen in the P16. If anything, the P16 is more likely to wheel spin because it's got less tyres that it needs to light up to make it wheel spin. So yeah, there's definitely something they've adjusted beyond, and I think that's what might not be helping trucks like the BOAR and the P512, because on top of, like, they're clearly not the best trucks in the game anyway, but on top of that, they've sort of adjusted the gearboxes behind the scenes, and then the first trucks we've all kind of tested out is stuff like the BOAR and the P512 and the Paystar, and then we're all getting that impression like, oh, that's a bit weird, they all feel a little bit gutless in certain ways. But then, yeah, like I said, as I've been driving stuff like the Tayga around, that felt a bit gutless. This is behaving a bit odd. So, yeah, I think that's why it's kind of accumulated with the BOAR and the P512 and the Paystar, that we all kind of feel they are a bit weak. So I've got stuck at some point, and again, I don't really know why, because I've been motoring through plenty of rivers and stuff. Even the river in Zimnogorsk, that's a bit of a challenging river. It goes fairly deep, it's got quite a lot of boggy mud and everything at the bottom, and yeah, this thing's drove through there before. There's all kinds of water sections. I quite like driving through the water, not to mention on the White Valley where I jump off the cliff and kind of drive through the water over to the other side of the island. This is one of the few trucks that actually made it by itself, because it was tall enough to... The water was pretty close to the top of the snorkel. It might have even gone under once or twice, but it didn't go long enough to wreck the engine. So the fact that that's struggling in that water, which is like barely as tall as the tyres, does make me think they've probably yeah, messed around with the map a little bit. And this section, I didn't have a good feeling about this section for the P16, because one thing non-all-wheel drive trucks struggle with on this game is rocks. Because as soon as it's trying to climb, say, the first rear axle over a rock, that's lifted half of the truck's pulling power off the floor to begin with. Obviously right now, if it had the fronts that were sort of digging in and gripping, it'd help pull the rears over. But for the most part, well, I stuck a winch on the back of the trailer, did it to like the telegraph pole that was kind of halfway down my truck. And that was, yeah, a nice little workaround, got out of there. Not too much trouble with that one. You can see though, fuel-wise, I mean this P16, is it 300 litres this has got? So it's got plenty of fuel, but yeah, the fuel usage as well stays more in like, yeah, the teens, 13, 14, 15, 16 odd litres. So this will be able to do a lot more long-term missions than the BOAR or the P512. The P512 are going to be pretty short missions unless you plan fuel in with it. Which again, I mean, just take a goddamn horsepower vehicle, that doubles your fuel. See, that rock, the rear tyre was caught on, that's what completely stopped me dead. And I don't really feel like that used to be a characteristic of the P16. It used to motor through, like, it put more effort in, I think. So I'll have to try it again, like I said, with the advanced special and see how that goes. See, it's got no trouble shoving the front up, because that's just being pushed by the back anyway, so that doesn't really have a lot of say in the situation. Using that high-low again, but I can't really hear the engine going mad. I'd kind of hope, if you're going to go all the way to the top of high-low, especially if they've set it in the fine-tune where you could set it halfway between medium and high, that, yeah, it should just give you 100% engine power torque, if anything, like as somebody was saying as well in the comments. Yeah, the low ranges, like in real life, they almost should multiply your torque to a degree. They're going into much lower gear ratios, but they're helping with the torque situation, whereas this game, yeah, they just behave more like a rev limiter on the first gear auto. There's definitely they've sort of missed a bit of a trick there. So we got a bit stuck, beached on a rock almost. Again, some little mystery shrub. Saved me bacon. Must be a little loaf train shrub. Yeah, stuck a winch on it. It was just enough to get them tyres over the top, and we're away. This is now the last little section. But yeah, even though there's a lot of weight and everything to the P16, it feels a lot. You can see there, like, no mud was splashing up, which it was with the BOAR. And even though this has only got single fronts, it doesn't feel like there's as much weight over the nose, and again, like, there's more weight at the rear, and because it has got nice big beefy dual rears, that kind of spreads it out. The ground pressure's not too insane on it. Again, I suppose keep it pinned for this, get it over the rocks. It didn't really have much of an issue here. Nearly clipped that telegraph pole, that's what I didn't want to do. And I didn't. All went well. So yeah, for the most part, as I said, the loaf for this one wasn't needed as much. Because this thing doesn't drink a lot with the fuel, it wasn't too bad. Again, I still thought we were going to get like some custom logging trailer for this that folds up and fits nicely in that little notch in the roof, but as of yet, I've certainly not come across one. I've not seen anyone else that's mentioned one or anything. So there it is again. You can see the size, like they're pretty similar. Yeah, again, the BOAR might even be, well, it's certainly got a bigger schnoz on it. But yeah, best horn in the game. That's the P16 done. Overall, I still prefer the P16. I still think it's the king of the big haulers. And then now I'm going to do, yeah, the Twinsteer, fly down there, grab the metal beams from one of those framing places. Again, I could have cut across the river and got some of my metal beams, but to be honest, I didn't want to cut across that river again. Bounced off there. Yeah, I wanted to go like this, turn right out of here and just have a bit of a freer flowing mission. The Twinsteer certainly gets its foot down, which I quite like about it. And yeah, I've definitely left the high range in for this one. There's no need to see what the fine-tune's like in this. I'll be sticking to the high range in this pretty much no matter what. Again, because it's got the biggest tyres that have access to the full-on high-range gearbox with the high gear, this thing motors along pretty nice. This is in high now, but this is a pretty nice pace to it. It's just slow enough that you don't go drifting around like mad. You might get a little bit of back-end drift. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because it helps just keep the trailer, like, yeah, it doesn't cut corners as badly and stuff. But yeah, and again, it's got absolute buckets of power to spare. A couple of trucks, when I cut through here the other day, they were not really liking like that section. A lot of them stalled in high, but this thing absolutely just ploughed through there. It's not got any cargo at the minute, but still. It'd be quite nice if they did some kind of logging, you know, thing on the rear, like if you could just have some kind of cradle on the back that could carry long logs. I don't even think there's an option on the Twinsteer, like frame add-ons. I don't think it's got any of that. It just has this, like a flatbed at the back. It is pretty handy though in this kind of situation for grabbing the metal beams. You don't need any trailers or anything. And even cutting through here, I mean, because it has got the 63-inch tyres, they're nice and tall, so it does better at kind of going over the terrain rather than having to cut through it. And yeah, particularly with the all-wheel drive. This is just a standard Twinsteer. It's not Fox's like twice Twinsteer, which I will be trying mods soonish. I'm just sort of waiting, letting a few mods update themselves. And yeah, I'm in no particular rush. I'm quite enjoying this map anyway. It's been pretty good. And again, yeah, the logging. It's nice to see the logging back. I went years ago on a school trip. I must have been, I don't know, 11 or 12. I probably mentioned it a while ago, going to Northumberland, which is, I don't think it's quite in Scotland, but I think it's pretty close to the Scottish border. It's just some hotel that a lot of schools go to for whatever reason. And while we're up there, we ended up, again, I don't really know why. It's not like the most interesting thing at the time for a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds or whatever. But we went to see like a logging area near Scotland, the biggest logging area in England or something apparently. Like 63,000 hectares, I remember, of trees that they were cutting down. But yeah, we got to go around this logging place and look at quite a few of the logging trucks as they're working, and they're just telling us all sorts of stuff. But yeah, some of the machinery and off-road things they had getting these trees, they were like a beast. There was one thing that was kind of an articulated middle. It had massive tyres on, a bit like the quasi monster mud tyres that, again, a lot of the mods have. And that's why I think they should add more of those big wide tyres to these sort of trucks. Yeah, you can get them in real life. I've seen a few on YouTube as well with the same, like the big wide sort of custom muds. And yeah, this thing, the tyres on it were massive, but the hill it was going up was near enough, like not far off a sheer drop. It was a good 45-degree angle, so the gradient of like 1 to 1 or whatever. And the mud was probably 2 to 4 foot thick. And yeah, this thing was an absolute beast at climbing up and down this very steep hill. And it had this big arm on it that used to like grab trees, chainsaw the bottom off, flip it round, like suck it through itself and flick all the branches off. And then it was loading it into a truck like his mate was near him. And yeah, you can tell they do it all day every day because they were absolutely hammering it. But it was pretty cool to see back then. Yeah, you can see cutting through there, I rolled. Fortunately for me, it was just saving at the time, so when I reloaded the game, I ended up back here. So I could have just brought a crane and reloaded it. To be honest, I couldn't be arsed, and yeah, I just thought I'll be sneaky, I'll reload the game. This section is a bit of a beast. It doesn't look too bad, but it makes you tip a lot. Nearly went there, but I thought I got away with it, and then at the last second, it absolutely just flipped me over. God damn it. Yeah, quickly quit the game and reloaded it again. So I got third time lucky, another chance at starting back here. So instead of just trying to drop off the rocks, we near enough got down to the railway station, and then yeah, I cut off to the left. I got the metal beams, and then this is like a little rocky bit you can drive through. It was best to loop round to the left there. It was the only time I could make it through there without rolling. It does feel as well like things recently, again it could just be me, but it feels like it doesn't take a lot these days, much tipping before your cargo jumps off the trailer or the truck in this case. I'm sure you used to get away with a little bit more, whereas yeah, these days it just jumps off. Sometimes you don't even tip, you might lean to the side, but you don't actually go enough to roll over. And it, yeah, still goes flying off. But again though, I do like this Twinsteer. It's always had a bit of muscle to it, and it's pretty cool. Like I said, you don't have to have any trailers or anything. Certainly doing a better job than the ramped flatbed would probably be doing. That thing tips every 2 minutes. And yeah, a little bit of a shortcut through the trees around the back. I'm going to have to cut over this river. I've got the bridge I've built, but to be honest, there seems to be like a little lane that you can cut through. I have to say though, with the Twinsteer, it does feel quite narrow overall. I think there is dual rears I could put on, which, yeah, might be an option at some point, because you can see there, it doesn't take a hell of a lot before it starts leaning. There are certainly less tippable trucks to be driven in this game, I know that much. Cutting over there though, especially with the all-wheel drive, low range diffs on. Yeah, no real issue through there, which is pretty nice. And whatever they have done with like rev caps and everything, the Twinsteer for the most part feels like it's got away with it. I still don't know if it feels 100% though, like the old school sort of, yeah, drop it in high and the thing absolutely goes flying like a maniac. Used to smash its way through certain bits of terrain that it had no real business making it through, but it was just, yeah, sheer muscle, it made it. So, approach the bridge from the other side. Again, it's quite a lot really, 6 metal beams. Bit of a greedy bridge, this one. Didn't need any concrete slabs though. Job done. Which is nice, because that little island that my P16 and the BOAR are parked on, that's kind of in the centre of the map, and yeah, this just helps getting from the left and to the right of the map without having to cut through that farm that you just seen me have to go through painfully slowly. Yeah, it's nice that they're gone. And that's about it for today. It's just a little bit of footage of me returning the trucks to the yard. It's a nice little view there of those two. Again, yeah, I think the P16 has still got the crown. I mean, maybe, well, I certainly think adding, yeah, the quasi monster wheel things would help spread the weight of this thing a little bit, and yeah, I mean, maybe it is a little bit too heavy for its own good. And as you can see, I'm still trying to keep my maps tidy. I'm rather than just scattering trailers all over the place. Did the lows nearly balance on his saddle? Oh no, speak to me, Loaf. That was a pretty dramatic death. Top 5 anime deaths. However, you can see that is one dead Loaf. But you go back to him, he's like, whoop, and he's back. There's one live Loaf. He's a goddamn professional. That's why you need to get yourself a Loaf. He's always ready for business. And then when I went back to this, I don't know why, my Loaf was packed on the little edge of the trailer, but it decided to become a floating Loaf. Yeah, typical as a glitch there, but yeah, reversed it. Stopped floating, landed on my trailer, and we're good to go. And yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is still, it's better than the P512 as well, as far as being able to manufacture its own grip and everything. But I still think they're not as terrible. You got to remember, some of the DLC trucks they've added, the Bandit wasn't as great as stuff like the Dolphin. The Taz and Warthog are pretty unusable because they're too light, so they just go too slow through terrain. So yeah, they're not too bad. But anyway, that's about it for today though. I hope you've enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, thanks to my Patreon members, and I'll be back soon.